types of budgets. So common types of budgets that you would have in a organization, even a small organization, is most likely you will have 3 levels of budgets. One being your operating budget, and that would be, or sometimes called an organizational budget or your annual budget. And that would be the budget that looks at your planned revenue and expenses for your whole operation as an organization. Okay. And then you have project budgets and activity budgets. So for your operating budget, you may prepare this for each fiscal year. Some of you may have a calendar year, January to December, as your financial period. Some of you may have different fiscal years. For example, in Canada, it's very common for an organization to have a fiscal year that starts April 1st and ends March 31st, in line with our government system. But so for each fiscal year, whether it's a calendar year or another arrangement, your organization should have an operating budget. So you have a big picture of what you expect in terms of revenue and what you expect in terms of expenses for all of your project activities, okay? And that's something that you want to be able to track throughout the year to make sure that you're not going to end up in deficit, make sure that your revenue and expenses are coming in as expected, as planned. So you need to be able to track your spending and your revenue against that budget. And this would include for all of the projects. So if you're implementing multiple projects in the year, you may have multiple funders funding different aspects of your work. This operating budget would include everything. Okay. The next level of budget, and it's almost like a subset from your organizational budget or operating budget, is your project budgets. So for every project that you've designed and you've gotten funding for, presumably you prepared a budget as part of your project development process and your project building process, and that budget has been agreed upon by your organization and your donors or funders, whoever is providing the funding for the activity. Okay, so you also need to be able to track your expenses against your project budget. So when you're spending money, you need to know what you've spent the money on, but you also need to know what which project that expense is associated with, so that you can then look at your project budget and make sure that your expenses are coming in as planned and that you're not going to exceed the budget you've agreed to with your funders. I didn't have one. The next level of budget is the activity budget. And your activity budget would be, it may be something that you use as an organization or not. It depends probably on the size of your projects. But an activity budget would be, for example, if you've engaged a trainer to come in and implement a particular training, you may provide an activity budget for that trainer to say, we have budgeted X amount for transportation, X amount for materials, X amount for your time, and they would then have to spend according to that activity budget. So an activity budget would be something that you would pull out of your overall project budget, because you may have only, say, one budget line for training, but that may actually be for 5 different trainings. So you would want to break that down for your trainers so that they know what they are expected to spend on the training that they're facilitating.
So Claire?
Yes.
So your activity budget is really like an internal project that the organization is paying for, rather than a project budget which may have funding from outside sources.
That's a great way of expressing it, Mark. Thank you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Another way to think about it too is, as the project manager, you may be aware of all of the different moving parts and the whole budget for the project in its entirety. But your field staff or a team member or a volunteer, they might not need to know that level of detail for the whole project, but they do need to know the details of the budget for the work that they are doing, right? So they need to know how much they can be spending on the activities they're doing.